So, welcome everyone. Good to see you. Full house today. So today's topic has been requested by a friend, and she is currently battling with feelings of loneliness. So she has asked for some advice on how to deal with feelings of loneliness. Basically, this is the topic today, and she's already been practicing meditation for several months, a year, and has had great success in the beginning of her journey. Her life changed, everything went better, she had great emotional stability, balance, good health. Her friends gave her positive feedback, everything went pretty good. And then all of a sudden she says there are these feelings of loneliness, like feeling completely isolated, feeling alone. And since this is something that is also very familiar to myself, you can feel completely lonely. Maybe some of you know that. You can feel completely lonely, alone in a world, even being surrounded by a lot of people. Maybe even right now, the room is full of people, and yet you might sit in here and still feel totally isolated, totally alone. And so maybe today is a good idea to explore that a little bit and see where that comes from and what we could do with these feelings. So most people, they have this sense of loneliness because they're continuously just thinking about themselves. That's where usually the feeling of loneliness comes from, because our thoughts are revolving continuously around this sense of me. The more sense of me there is, the harder to bear it becomes. It creates a very strong sense of isolation and otherness. There's me, and then there are all the other people, 7 billion of them. And then there's me and all the others. You see, it's this kind of great gap between me and others. And the more me there is, the more far away the others appear. And that might be perceived in a subtle way as a sense of loneliness. Feeling alone. Nobody really understands me. Nobody really knows what I'm going through. This is actually true. Nobody really knows what anyone else is going through. We can only really know what we are going through ourselves. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we are actually lonely. That sense of loneliness comes from, as I said, dwelling too much on this me thing, the ego. And so, for example, if people have a very, very big sense of self, and very often we call that depression. The bigger the sense of self, the bigger the likelihood that you are depressed. How comes? Because the self is a huge contraction. That's the nature of the self. It's contracted. It's very fearful in nature. And it's isolated in nature. So the more you feel isolated and alone, more likely that you also feel depressed. The more you think about yourself, the more likely you're harboring thoughts of ill will towards yourself also. Not liking yourself. Not liking the way you feel, not liking the way you are, not liking the way you look. Very common. And so based on all this dislike, this self-hatred, then the self is being blown out of proportion again and again. Each time we're thinking about the self, we are strengthening the sense of self. Each time we're strengthening it, it becomes more and more dramatic. We're encapsulating ourselves within ourselves. It's almost like a trap. And then no wonder we feel lonely, cut off, misunderstood, not seen, unloved. So what's the antidote? How can we deal with that if you feel lonely like this? Well, the antidote is kindness. Actually opening the heart. And kindness not as an idealism, not like you're just thinking kind thoughts. May everybody be happy. That's nice already, but by far not enough. Kindness has to be followed by action. It has to be followed by kind words and kind deeds. Kind things you actually do with your hands, with your body. That involves other people, other living beings. Not only human beings, but other living beings. It can be dogs, alligators, tigers, whatever. It's very important to be kind to other beings. And why is that so important? Because it directly counteracts self-absorption. Yeah, as I just said, clearly the more we are self-absorbed, the more unhappy we become, the more lonely we feel. The more our heart actually opens, and it is an opening motion, the more of a we there is. The more a sense of belonging arises. Feeling a sense of community. And that is something we thrive on. It's really important. There's no sense of community, your tribe, then we feel lost, excluded. Well, many times it happens to people who are living in cities. They're all living in their apartments alone and feel very alone, even though the city is full of people. But there is no real connection going on anymore. So what furthers that too is this illusion of connection through mobile devices, through the internet. It creates an illusion of connecting. So you might have, that's the famous thing, you might have 263 friends, yet you feel alone, yet you feel misunderstood. Yet the real sense of belonging is not there. That's why we need to actually practice to get out. It's part of the spiritual path. Get out of your house. Get out of your cave. Go into the city. See what you can do. How can you connect? How can you help? This is really, really important. Most time we're neglecting that practice because in the beginning you're usually carried away by the effects of the novelty of meditation. It's pretty amazing. You go through all kinds of blissful experiences, your life improves, you're getting out of the usual kind of mindset that we have pre-meditation practice. So it's this first high. You're seeing that, wow, I don't have to suffer the way I did. Fantastic. I can be totally at ease and relaxed, and I can feel great within my own body and mind. And then you do that for a while. And then you become self-absorbed in that. You see? And that's how, even though when you're practicing a lot of meditation, you can feel horrible. Because something vital is missing. It's the warmth, the connection, the kindness, the friendliness, the activity that involves other living beings. As I said, the more me, the more pain. My teacher said, in a nice way, he said, so people who have a big ego, they are like having no skin. Wherever they go, it hurts. If they just hit something very lightly, they already hurt. If someone is looking at them just the wrong way, just only looking, they're already disturbed. Right? I know that from myself. And I've heard that also from other people. They've also described the same thing once they were honest enough to see that within themselves. Sometimes we hear something, we hear the quote-unquote the wrong thing, and we get upset. That's a sign of too much me. You are not allowing another person to freely express their opinions. You take offense. Who takes offense? Me. I take offense. How can you dare to say something like that? To me. You are hurting yourself like that. But we don't recognize it. We don't see how we are hurting ourselves. Very often this remains hidden. Like your eyes, they do not see themselves. You cannot see your own face. Your own face remains hidden to you. You need a mirror to see it. And so meditation is a bit like a mirror. It's the opportunity to look at yourself. So you can say it's a very lonely path. Because it's just you. You just sit down there with yourself. And then you look at how do you create suffering and problems for yourself. Unnecessarily so. How does it work? How does the mind function? And when you can see that clearly and honestly, then you will see also that this comes from a sense of self every single time. From a lack of kindness, acceptance, goodwill. So for me, I take that always as a very clear sign. As soon as the loneliness creeps up, and it does creep up every now and then, I take it as a sign, okay, I've been lacking in kindness then. And sure enough, it's always the case when I'm too heavy on concentration practices, when I'm too heavy on cultivating wisdom and so forth. What's too heavy on these aspects of the path, the kindness, the compassionate aspect is then lacking. I kind of lock my doors, I cancel appointments, I'm just alone by myself because I want to practice. Then after a good while, that feeling of loneliness starts to come in. The feeling of self-loathing, not feeling good enough. Whatever I do, it's not good enough. I don't like myself. By now, I already know why that happens. So I can immediately then apply the antidote. It's kindness again. And on this path, we need to learn to take the signs and to read them. Why do you hurt right now? There's different types of pain. For example, you might feel overly restless, totally distracted, constantly thinking about all kinds of rubbish. What's lacking? Well, focus is lacking. Discipline is lacking. The mind is all over the place. So we need to up the practice of discipline and focus. Bring in more seated sessions. Put in more effort. That has its place. It's really important too. And over time you will learn to read this. Okay, right now I'm lacking in focus, so let's up the game with focus. Bring in more discipline. Less media. For example, I have times when I listen to songs, I would watch a lot of movies, and in generally I'm spending my day with more distractions. I'm checking the phone more than usual, for example. Just checking what's new on Instagram. Is there anything going on? Did I receive a new mail? Just randomly, I'm just sitting around somewhere. Just I could check if I got a new mail, and sure enough, there's always something there that keeps me busy. That's what this is designed for. So in such times, I slowly notice how I'm feeling a sense of unhappiness. I'm feeling unhappy. Kind of like noisy. Feels too noisy after a while. Then I notice, I have neglected, for example, the aspect of focus and discipline, actually creating a lifestyle that is conducive to real happiness. Not just pleasures, not just short pleasures, but real happiness, a happiness that comes from within. I take this opportunity real quick. This is important. What is real happiness? Well, real happiness is something that comes from the inside, meaning it is not dependent on circumstances. So it doesn't matter how anyone looks at you, you still have that inner happiness. It doesn't matter what anyone says, you're still happy on the inside. You're still feeling great and released. That's an independent happiness. That's a certain degree of freedom if you have that. No matter what happens to your body or mind, you're fine. That's real happiness. But as it is right now, if circumstances are all right, we're happy. And if circumstances change, we're unhappy. Like, I'm alone in my house, nobody loves me, I'm on withdrawal, my body hurts due to too much yoga. And it pulls you mentally down. It becomes a drama in your head, even though there is nothing really going on. It becomes a huge problem in our heads. Even though it's just a feeling. It's just a sound. But it becomes so much bigger in the mind. Poor me, oh my God, why always me? And it goes into all these kind of, I don't know, like an abyss that is in the mind, and could pull you down quite fast if you don't notice. All of a sudden you're lost in this huge poor me ego trip. And you only wake up because it's becoming so unbearably painful that you ask yourself, like, well, what could I do to get out of that one? And then we take action. Hopefully wise action, skillful action. Namely, really understanding what your mind does actually. By looking at it, understanding it, seeing what do you do to yourself right now. And in doing yourself the favor of actually letting go of stress. That is very kind. I notice when I'm paying too much attention, for example, on concentrative practices, my mind becomes uptight. If I'm concentrating too much, I have more headaches, I'm feeling uptight in my head, then that pain again is a sign for me to change something in the way I practice. So we need to learn to read those signs very well. Loneliness, that's a clear sign for no kindness. There's lack of kindness. It's impossible to feel kind and at the same time lonely. For example, we want to start with being kind towards ourselves. How to do that? How to be kind towards yourself. Take a bath, a bubble bath. Have something nice like for dinner. Is that being kind to yourself? Have some ice cream. Like a whole box of ice cream. Is that kind? Now that's just addictive behavior, right? But really being kind to yourself, you're not creating physical or mental harm. You have a sense of appreciation for yourself. Are you able right now to see your goodness, for example? Your own goodness. Why are you good? What is it that you could appreciate about yourself? Honestly, if you were to die in 10 minutes, and you would kind of have to go through, what's good about me? You have these 10 minutes to reflect on that. What would you come up with? Without doubts. So the ability to see your own goodness, that's how you can be kind to yourself. Kindness sees that. Through kindness, you are able to see your own goodness. You can see that you're not just a mess up. That part is there too. We also mess up. There's evil and badness, that's there too. But that's not exclusive. It's not only evil and bad. There's also goodness. And if you can see that, you give that energy. You help it to grow. If you pay attention to something, it grows. So if you can see your own goodness, it will grow. If you can see, for example, and celebrate within yourself an act of kindness that you just did, where you helped someone else, where you sat down and you were kind towards yourself by practicing meditation, and you are able to see this and celebrate it and enjoy the fact that you are doing good things, then those good things will grow. They'll become more and greater in power. So a sense of appreciation, right? A sense of warmth. That's another aspect of kindness. Feeling warmth towards yourself. Like a good friend, your best friend, who hasn't seen you for a long time, and you guys meet up again. That sense of warmth that you have for your best friend, can you have it for yourself? That sense of warmth that and I always bring that example because it's just so powerful. That sense of warmth and affection that your mom had for you when she first held you in her arms. Can you have that for you? Can you feel like this towards yourself? Can you see yourself as what you actually are? A little tiny, living, breathing skin bag full of flesh and bones that walks this huge blue planet having no clue what we are doing. We just all pretend we knew. We're able to repeat things that have been said to us. That doesn't mean we know. It just means we can repeat. If we have read something, it doesn't mean we know it. It means we have read it and we can repeat it. And so we're walking around, all of us, like little skin bags on this huge blue planet, all trying to be happy. Creating a mess both for ourselves and all others around us most of the time, but we're all trying to be happy. Can you see that? You're actually very lovely. You're actually very small, very tiny, Compared to the size of the universe, what are you? That's a change of perspective. Can you see that tiny little human being that you are, trying to be happy? That's all you do. Just walking here, walking there like a little ant. Trying to be happy, trying to find something that makes you happy. Constantly. If you can see it like that, it gives you an access to perceiving yourselves with kindness, with warmth. I'm actually quite cute. There's all this, for me, for example, there's all this kind of meditation teacher thing that can quickly get to my head. How do I counteract it? Well, I see that I'm actually not a meditation teacher, but just a cute little human being that sits up here and just talks. Thinking that I know a lot about meditation. No, not really, not at all actually. So, just need to relax and see the actual fact of the situation. The mind, of course, likes. My ego loves that. It would like to be seen as an adult. It says, Tobi, please, I want you to take me seriously. I can't. It's too funny. I can't. And the more I look at this little ego thing that tries to be very important and adult and whatnot, and is very addicted to its own problems. It loves its own problems. It needs them. The more I think it's funny business, just watching this little ego play its big game. It's funny. It's like a little kid trying to be an adult, pretending to be an adult, putting on the suit of dad, the necktie of dad. That little boy, think of it. A little boy, maybe 6 years old, putting on dad's suit and necktie, dad's shoes, pretending to be the boss. That's funny. But ego is like that. Puts on this way too big suit and pretends to be an adult when it's just like a child. It throws temper tantrums when it doesn't get what it wants. Just like a little child. It wants to be loved. It wants to be held by mom and dad, just like a little child. Only that mom and dad are replaced by the partner, the relationship, the boss, God. God, the big dad up in the sky that judges you and punishes you if you're not good. It's pretty cute, that little ego. So that helps me to feel warmth towards myself. It's not that big of a deal. It's just this small ego throwing a temper tantrum, feeling like an adult. Another approach is to actually use sentences and words to evoke a feeling of kindness. May I be happy. May I be truly happy. And in the beginning, when you say that to yourself, you're kind of calling that down into your being. Say, hey, I hope you will be happy. How wonderful would it be if I was truly happy? And there is maybe at the beginning like kind of a feeling of, what am I doing here? That's weird, Just wishing myself happiness. That's strange. Keep going. That means you're out of your comfort zone. You're getting somewhere right now. It's uncharted territory. It feels unusual. It feels strange and weird. Keep going. You're on track. Just keep telling yourself nice things. Developing a good way of communicating with yourself. Good inner self-talk. How's your self-talk like right now? If you would have to kind of check that for 10 days and write down like, how are you generally talking to yourself? If you can see that, you can change it to your advantage. If you don't see that, it will change you to its advantage. Let's say if your self-talk is primarily angry, that angry self-talk will change your life to its advantage. And you will get more and more things to be angry about. More and more input for this anger to actually stay active. But if you see it, if you can catch it, you can change it to your advantage. What kind of self-talk would feel refreshing right now? What would you like to hear? Say it to yourself. And in the beginning, yes, it'll feel weird. Say, Tobi, I love you. I'm standing in front of the mirror and I say to myself, Tobi, I love you. It feels really weird. Tobi, you're a great guy. There is something inside of me that says, come on. Stop boasting, Stop pretending you're not a great guy and you know it. That's that part. That's what's in the way of me actually enjoying myself. It's really harmless joy, isn't it? It doesn't hurt anyone if I feel good about myself. Opposite. It helps me and others. If I'm not feeling good about myself, well, how can anyone benefit around me? It's impossible. You've got to experiment a little bit, see what kind of sentences and words can you use to uplift yourself, to evoke a feeling of kindness for yourself. May I be truly happy. May I be free from suffering and pain. And there are 3 steps. Okay? And so this talk today is all about these 3 steps of how to cultivate kindness and compassion. The first step is imagine how wonderful would it be if you could be truly happy. Imagine. How would your life be like? You gotta imagine this. If you cannot imagine it, you'll not get there. How would your life be like if you were truly happy? If your happiness came flooding out of your heart, filling every cell of your being, how would your life change? How wonderful if I was truly happy, if my happiness was independent of circumstances. Imagine until you feel like, wow, that would be awesome. Like a little child looking forward to Christmas. Like you think you want the PlayStation, I want the PlayStation. And you imagine, if I have that PlayStation, it's going to be so awesome. Then you get that PlayStation. You imagine it at first. You want to have that PlayStation. Or you want to have, I don't know, whatever it is that you want to have, right? As a little child. Before, when my grandparents were little children, they were wishing for things like an orange. It's a freaking mind blow. They were like super happy when they got an orange. Like, wow, I got an orange. That's amazing, Now try that nowadays. Give a child an orange. They will throw it right back at you probably. Or probably depends on where you are also in the world. If you're in so-called developed countries, that orange might be thrown back at you. So imagine that. Imagine how would it be like if you were truly happy. Imagine it to the point where you feel a wish to arise. May I be truly happy. See how they both connect? Many people, first of all, they start with, may I be truly happy, may I be truly happy, may I be truly happy, may I be truly happy. They chant that to themselves without actually imagining it first. Imagine it first. Imagine you got that juicy orange. Wouldn't that be amazing? May I get that orange. May I be happy. What's the third step? Now that's also a very important step. May I take it upon myself to make myself truly happy. You take responsibility. Because no one is going to do that for you. You can shout out into the universe, dear universe, please make me happy. Nothing will happen. What is important is your actions. What do you actually do day by day, hour by hour, to get there? To cultivate true happiness. And well, there's many things you could do. You could go out there and make other people happy. That's a great one. It's pretty simple. Who could you make happy today? What could you do? Who could you call? Could you call your mom, your dad today? Say something nice to them? Could you treat one of those guys at 7-Eleven that have an incredibly boring day behind the counter? Could you treat them with kindness? Make them laugh. Make their day a little bit. Buy them an ice cream. Just be creative. Do something to uplift another being's spirit. Do something kind. And you will see it makes you feel better. Automatically. If you give something, it makes you feel good. Because you're becoming lighter. If you take something, it makes you feel not so good because it makes you heavier. So using that a little bit and playing with your abilities to make yourself and other people happy, what could you do? How could you talk to yourself? How could you make your body happy? How could you make your mind happy? How could you breathe to feel a little bit better now? See, it's simple. But all that grows out of, may I be truly happy, and then may I do something to make that happen. Because nobody is going to do that for you. Nobody. But you. See, the bad news is nobody is going to make you happy. Good news is you can make yourself happy. And share it with others. Let it grow. The only thing others can give us is pleasure. Pleasure doesn't last. You can get the pleasure of a good communication, pleasure of being fed by other people, pleasure of hanging out with your best friend. That's all nice. It's all good. But true happiness has to come from within. And then it can flow out into your life. And then the problem of loneliness will be solved as well. Kindness is so, so powerful. Okay, so that's all that comes to mind for today.